Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. President Joe Biden has hinted at Washington lifting restrictions on Ukraine using US long-range missiles against Russia. If granted, it would fulfill repeated requests by Ukraine to loosen the limits on US-supplied weapons, which officials have said has left them fighting against Russia's full-scale invasion with their hands tied. Russia is yet to comment, but President Vladimir Putin has previously said such action could lead to very serious problems. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and his UK counterpart, Foreign Secretary David Lammy, are in Kyiv to discuss the issue with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Any decision by the US could influence Europe and the UK into following suit. Mexico's Senate has approved a controversial judicial reform under which judges will be elected by popular vote. The bill has triggered protests and strikes, with demonstrators breaking into the building where the vote was taking place. Demonstrators flooded the upper level of the Senate chamber, chanting traitors in opposition to the reform. The Senate vote was the last major hurdle the legislation faced and had the backing of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador. Residents in the Vietnamese city of Thanh Nguyen, some 80 kilometers from Hanoi, have been seen wading in knee-deep floodwaters after Typhoon Yagi killed at least 141 people. Some residents were seen rowing through the streets in canoes, while others attempted to salvage what they could of their belongings. Heavy rains brought by Typhoon Yagi have triggered deadly landslides and floods throughout northern Vietnam, killing at least 141 people with 59 others missing. That's according to Vietnam's Disaster Management Agency. There has also been severe property damage and disruption to businesses and industries. Kamala Harris and Donald Trump have met in a fiery debate, their first and maybe only meeting of the 2024 US presidential election.
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fella.
They debated policy, but personal attacks also dominated the 90-minute event.
They're eating the dogs.
There were also some typically wild claims from the former president.
They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Trump criticized Harris's record on immigration and the border and also her shifting policy positions. Meanwhile, Ms. Harris said people left Mr. Trump's rallies early due to boredom.
You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
Meanwhile, Taylor Swift has endorsed Kamala Harris for president moments after the end of Tuesday night's presidential debate against Donald Trump. The pop star made her announcement in an Instagram post signed as Childless Cat Lady, a reference to comments made by Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance. Her post, breaking her silence on the 2024 vote, explained, "I'm voting for Kamala Harris because she fights for the rights and causes I believe need a warrior to champion them." She added, "I believe we can accomplish so much more in this country if we are led by calm and not chaos."
She is a cultural icon. Something big has happened in the world in terms of the energy and vibrancy she's associated with, the optimism she's associated with. That was a big deal as well.
And finally, Pope Francis has arrived in Singapore for the first leg of his 12-day, 4-country tour across Southeast Asia and Oceania. The Pope was greeted at Singapore's Changi Airport by senior officials. Later, he was received by 4 children donning national costume, each welcoming him in one of the 4 of Singapore's official languages, Malay, English, Tamil and Mandarin. Pope Francis is expected to spend 2 days in Singapore. His visit will include a mass at the National Stadium, which the Vatican expects to draw some 55,000 people. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.